Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to call bullshit on the way the American media is portraying the number of protesters, their tallies that they're giving for the number of folks who turned out at the hands-off protests yesterday. Absolute bullshit. The numbers are massively underreported. Someone in my comments said that for her town's small event, that the news came at the very beginning when it first started and only stayed for a few minutes, and they reported there were dozens of people there. But if you had waited another 30 to 45 minutes, you would have seen that there were several hundred people who eventually showed up, but they didn't bother to hang around. So the number that got reported in the press was like a couple dozen, but it was really like 400. And this is not just legacy media, which we already know skews very right, loves to pander to the Trump regime. Several of those corporations are owned by Republican billionaires, if not outright MAGAs. Right, we have Reuters saying thousands of protesters gathered in Washington, D.C. I saw other outlets using a figure of 10,000. Y'all, that is not how many people showed up. That is how many people that the rally organizers said they thought might turn out when they filed for their initial permits. The Guardian and Aaron Parnas reported at least 500,000 people. And other folks on the ground said the number was closer to 1 million. And mad props to CNN, who actually said that there were millions of people who showed up around the country. But so many legacy media outlets are downplaying the numbers in every city, especially local news outlets. I know the Oregonian said thousands of people in Portland. I've seen reports anywhere between 15 and 30,000. I have not seen an official count on how many of us, just the downtown event, not any of the surrounding events in all of the suburbs and, in East Portland and in Southeast Portland. Or in Esther Short Park in Vancouver, just across the river, where someone said there was between 3,000 and 4,000 people. We're seeing the media downplay the turnout, and why might that be? Why is it? First of all, they were really hesitant to cover this story, but when you have 1,400 events around the United States in every major city, every state capital, every suburb, small rural communities all over the country, can't really ignore that, can you? Even if you wanted to, even if you know it's going to piss Daddy Donald off for you to cover those stories. So maybe let's just underreport the numbers, or let's show up just long enough to see how many people are there at the beginning and not actually look at when the crowd is at its peak. In particular, I was really, honestly, I was pissed off to see PBS with this report.
Across the country and around the world today, tens of thousands of people turned out for what organizers say has been the biggest single day of protest against President Trump and his second-term policies and actions. In this country, more than 1,000 rallies were planned in small towns and major cities from coast to coast. Ali Rogan begins our coverage.
In Washington, crowds descended on the National Mall, calling for lawmakers to rein in President Trump.
He's right now destroying our economy. He's taken away all of our allies. We're a pariah in the world. And Congress sits back and does nothing.
The mass protest, dubbed the Hands-Off National Day of Action, was organized by advocacy groups that oppose the president's policies during his first term. Protesters railed against Mr. Trump's recent moves to lay off scores of federal workers, revoke protections for immigrants, and implement sweeping tariffs. But for Democratic leaders, the president's threat to democracy took center stage.
Our founders wrote a constitution that does not begin with "we the dictators." The preamble says, "We the people."
The movement spread far beyond the nation's capital. From the sidewalks of South Bend to downtown Boston and New York City, demonstrators took to the streets in protests both big and small to oppose President Trump's agenda. That resistance echoed around the globe. In Germany, England, and Portugal, protesters flocked to public squares to show support and solidarity with Americans.
Freedom is at stake in the United States and for the whole world with what Donald Trump is doing. And we need to stand up.
For PBS News Weekend, I'm Ali Rogan.
Okay, thank you, Ali Rogan, for covering the protests. But what the actual fuck, PBS, for saying it was tens of thousands of people? Protest organizers are saying it was 5 million people. Alt National Park Service says it was at least 5 million people. If CNN can report that it's millions of people turned out, why are you saying tens of thousands? There was more than that in downtown Portland, Oregon. There were more than 1,400 events across the United States and more in Canada and Europe. And millions of people turned out. Why are we minimizing the turnout? Who does that benefit? You want to talk about an eroded trust. This is like a running theme for me today. Eroded trust. Trust is eroded in the media when y'all cannot be accurate in describing what is happening. We already know that you have sane-washed Trump for years and years and years. You have given a platform and legitimized a fascist for years and years. And now you are minimizing on purpose the resistance, the pro-democracy movement. Why is that? Why are you afraid to accurately describe what's happening? And do you not realize how that makes people less likely to trust your reporting? I'm glad that these stories are getting some traction, some play in the national news. I know that it's a lot less than it should be. Like, it was just a little blip. It's just like a 90-second blip, when these are basically the most monumental nationwide protests that we've had in a very, very, very long time. I also want to say how grateful I am for independent media, independent journalists that covered the event, and for regular folks on social media sharing their stories, their photos, lots of really cool drone footage. Lots of math nerds who are, making a grid on top of those aerial photos and figuring out a more accurate count. I appreciated the little grandma at the East Portland event who literally went around and did a head count to get the number 819. Okay, I feel better having vented that a little bit. It's just frustrating to see that legacy media is still so determined to, in so many ways, be complicit with this regime, to either not resist it and just give tacit approval, or to do things to try not to antagonize Trump. It's frustrating, but we ultimately know that, well, one, they're independent journalists doing good work, but two, we the people, we have our own ability to communicate with each other and accurately represent what is happening. We know you can't gaslight us. You can try to pander to Trump, legacy media, but you cannot gaslight the people who are out on the streets. We know, and we are freely sharing what happened. It would be nice if y'all could get with the program and give it the appropriate coverage with accurate information.